like, even when we feel tired, there's still small amounts of gentle exercise that we can do, whether it's body weight movement at home or even just like walks around the block, that even in a fatigued state can have so many benefits for our mental health that it outweighs any risks of moving our body when we're tired.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the First Optimal Podcast. Here with Dala McDevitt, someone with a much, much more creative and attention-grabbing name than I have. We were just talking about off camera, but awesome episode. So really, really excited for all of you to experience this. Dala has a wealth of knowledge. A couple key areas we'll get into is all around like postnatal kind of things along those lines. Definitely getting some menopause, women's health, and just general health as all. So she's been doing this for quite some time, well over 10 years, a slew of different certifications, has her own method she's designed, and provides that as a lot of service to other health and fitness practitioners, and definitely a leader in the space. So we're truly honored and blessed to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Well, good stuff. There's so much to go over. I always say this at the beginning, that I'm like, hopefully I don't screw it up. So, but yeah, so we were kind of talking a little bit beforehand, before we started recording, about the transition in life, when you got into the industry earlier in your 20s,
Yeah.
and then now where you are in life in those stages. And I'm curious, just if you wouldn't mind unpacking that a little bit for the audience out there, as far as not only your life journey, but how it how it overlaps, I guess I would say, with your approach to coaching, clients you service, all of the above.
Yeah, definitely. So, my original background is in nursing. I've always been fascinated with human physiology and medicine. I went into labor and delivery nursing, and I was kind of in my mid 20s and was actually somebody who historically had suffered from eating disorders, like so many women out there,
Mhm.
just not understanding nutrition at all, thinking that like less is always more, being terrified of bread, terrified of carbohydrates. And I was a big cardio bunny. I would run like 20 to 40 miles a week always. And that was my only form of exercise. And I was like 5 years into my nursing career, and I was so exhausted by not understanding nutrition and not understanding exercise and feeling like I had no control over my body weight. I was always going from extremes of like under eating and being really thin, like as low as like, 108 pounds at my 5'5" height. And then, periods of overeating and popping up into the 140s and like always swinging back and forth. And I thought like, man, how is it that I'm in the medical field and I still don't understand like anything about how to actually take care of myself? So that led me just to a lot of self-guided study, taking some courses, getting some certifications. And honestly, like Instagram was a big conduit for my learning. And I started following women who were weightlifting, and
Mm,
they all seemed to eat a lot of food and eat a
mm.
lot of foods that I hadn't touched in over a decade, and they were strong and they seemed confident and they seemed happy. And I just thought like, whatever they're doing, I want to go learn from that. So I started implementing resistance training myself. And that's also, they were, macro counting. So I was like, what are macros? Let me learn
Right.
about this. Let me learn about calories. And in doing that, in starting macro tracking and weightlifting, I was able to completely cure like over a decade of eating disorders, because I finally started to understand the connection between what my body needs, how to fuel it, and how exercise can make me feel strong and not just like let me be as thin and as small as possible. And being able to back down on the cardio too. I wasn't always in such these exhaustive, like stressed out states all the time, that my hunger got a lot more stable and I got a lot more in control of all of that. So my Instagram originally began as blogging about this experience and just like, hey, I'm a cardio bunny girl who struggled with this, and now I want to show you what I'm learning. And years of doing that, I started to build a bit of a following base until I ultimately started offering coaching once I was certified to do so. And later that same year, my husband and I both quit our jobs and launched my coaching business, which was really amazing that we were able to do that. When I first started my coaching business, I was like mid 20s, like 27 years old. So at the time, it was very like, luxury 90-minute workouts, working out 6 days a week, like kind of having all the time in the world. And fitness was a lot of like my life. And a lot of that was like passion driven by the new business, but it took many, many hours. And it was kind of like all that I did because I had the bandwidth to do that. Now I'm 35 years old with a son, and my business has matured in a lot of awesome ways, namely just that I now understand a bit more how to be into fitness and be fit and healthy and strong and still love fitness, but do it in a way that probably makes more sense for the average person who doesn't want fitness to become their entire personality, who doesn't want to go to the gym 6 to 7 days a week, who wants to do 30-minute workouts sometimes at home with dumbbells and figure out how to make that work, and who wants fitness to be a part of their life, but they're still invested in their career, their family, their social life, and they don't want fitness to be the entire thing.
Oh yeah. No, I can recall, in my early 20s, I was just saying to someone the other day, I don't know if it might have been on a podcast, maybe not. I don't remember now, but I used to be like one of the key things I'll never forget because now I laugh at myself in my 40s doing this was, my clients would say, well, does walking count as exercise? And I'd be like, no, it doesn't. You need to train hard, blah, blah. And now like that's one of my wife and I's biggest thing is like every morning we walk and we like make sure we get our steps because doing what we do, a lot of times, believe it or not, like even though we're in this space, we're sitting a lot. And so we have to like undo that. And now it's one of the main things that I use to like if I'm having a really busy season to regulate weight, health markers, blood sugar, eating, all the above. And it helps so much. And again, I was early 20s,
Yeah.
meathead. I can say it. Like I was a
Training to
competitive.
failure.
Oh yeah. And I competed in the physique sports and powerlifting as well. And so I was just like all hardcore. And it was like that was cool because like the client would see and say, oh, I wanna that guy walks the talk. But I think I will say I learned this later. I was fortunate enough to learn it a little bit earlier than I should have, I guess I would say, but I definitely remember some of the things now that I regret because of how much better I could have supported my clients. I mean, I was grateful that they picked me, but it
Yeah.
was also like I was probably a little too harsh.
That really, I resonate with that a lot. I look back at some of the programs that I was writing, and a lot of it was like, we're going to be lifting minimum 5 days a week, and we're going to be doing cardio 3 days a week. And we're also going to be having these like complex, like stretching and mobility routines. And, that's because I was in my mid 20s with, no kids to take care of, or I had a lot of free time. And so I had the ability to do that. And now I look at those programs and I'm like, oh my gosh, who has like 15 hours a week just to try to improve their fitness a little bit?
Yeah, no, and I like because you were talking about like I think there's a couple things that come to mind, like, the switch between it's always been this way, and I feel like it's almost funny because it almost seems like it's kind of can shift sometimes, but I remember hardly ever seeing women in the free weight area, if you will. And like the cardio machines were jam packed, and it was all the dudes were over there
Mm-hmm.
lifting weights,
Mm-hmm.
talking. They all need to do more cardio, and the women need to do more strength. And now you're kind of seeing
Yeah.
this movement where there's, well, not now, but it's been happening for some time now. But where there's, to your point that you mentioned, and when you started to see it on Instagram and such, women picking up the weights. And I think there's like, I don't want to put a pinpoint a time frame, and I'm curious if you've experienced this, but there's like this, and somewhere in their 40s there was like this delineation. I don't know if it's, if you graduate high school before the year 2000, maybe like you think weightlifting will make you big and bulky. And then after that, it seemed to change. Cause I see a lot of women like 40 and below seem to be, I'm painting with a broad brush here, of course, but seem to
Yes.
be
Yeah.
like more open to that. And then I find that in the 40s, 50s, 60s, it's more this like, again, I'm not blaming them. They're just going off of what they were told, but it's more this outdated, like 1980s, early 90s kind of mindset of you don't lift weights, you do all this cardio and all that. Like, do you experience different? feedback based on like the age demographic? Is there, what are some things you kind of run into with women when you're guys are first engaging with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're spot on that the clients that I encounter now that are in their 20s and 30s, and then some women in their 40s, they are down to weightlift. They're often already doing it to some degree. They have a gym membership or they have a home gym. They're interested in it. They think that, overall being strong makes sense. They're less afraid of, like lifting will make you bulky. The older clients, and just older as in like, 40s, 50s, 60s, especially like women
Right.
in their 50s and 60s, that's not how it was when they were younger and
Right.
exercising. My mom is 60 years old, and we talk about this now all the time because she's super into weightlifting now, and she walks in a weighted vest and she's
Oh,
like
that's
doing all
awesome.
of that. But she was like, when we grew up, like big butts were not cool. She was like,
Yeah.
you wanted to be as skinny as
Yeah.
possible, because she sees me like doing, like hip thrusts, and she's like, I can't believe that you're actually trying to make your butt more shapely. And
That's
she was
that's
like,
funny. Yeah.
Kate Moss was the woman that we all aspired to be. Like, you wanted to be like as skinny and as small and like straight up and down as possible. And it's like, to no fault of their own, they were just kind of told that that was beautiful, fit, and that's what everyone was doing. She's like, you just didn't see women going to the gym. Like, men went to the weight room and women did cardio. But I think now, like younger women, we have a little bit more of a luxury of it being normal. Like,
Yeah.
we're not really having to, like, I wouldn't say that at my age, I'm 35, I'm not having to like pave the way for women in the weight room. I'm
Sure.
fortunate that I was just kind of born into it, and it was already becoming more normal and popularized.
Yeah, I had on, I'm gonna mess it up, but I wanna say she holds 36 world records, I think. Jen Thompson, she's a power lifter, and she was explaining the same thing. She got into it in, like, the late '80s, early '90s, I wanna say, and it was just interesting to hear about exactly what you're describing, like, her journey, and just it was like she was the only woman in any of these, like, powerlifting gyms with just
Back
absolutely
then,
just
yeah.
destroying it, so, like and now, like, just seeing, being a part of the whole transition, was an interesting conversation. But um, one thing I did want to ask you about too was, when you're going through the certifications and such. And so I think I'm going to try to bundle this question in two parts, I guess. But you went through, which I'm a big fan of. I went through several of these because originally, just to take a step back, originally I went to school for kinesiology and health and got a little more
Awesome.
into nutrition and some physiology stuff. And then my first certifications were through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which I see, you have that,
Yes.
which is great. And so I'm curious to like, as you can you talk a little bit out about, and maybe health coaches are listening to this as well, but um, as you were able to start going through some training certifications, and then you look at your team now, I mean, you got to be over. I don't know if they're all health coaches, but you have over 20 people on your team, I would imagine, something around that,
Yeah.
at least on your website, it's pretty impressive what how many different people you have on there. So how did you go from like, I'm running, I'm trying to, starting to kind of do this whole weightlifting thing. This is cool, to now I'm getting certified. Now I have a bunch of, respected, reputable coaches that are now deciding to join me in my company and do what I do. Like, how does that play out?
Yeah. So I think one thing that was really helpful for our growth, because we were fortunate to grow pretty quickly, is I had been on Instagram for over 2 years with
Mm.
no offer, like about 2.5 years of just content, 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 nurturing. And I had like, like 40,000 followers at the time when I finally like launched my coaching offer. And so I got up to like 70 clients myself pretty quickly. And then my husband also joined me, became a certified coach, and he had 70 clients pretty quickly. And then there still continued to be demand, and we were hiring like every couple of months. And then COVID happened too, so
Mm.
I launched my business full time. Like, when I quit my nursing job and I wasn't doing them at the same time anymore, it was the end of 2018. And so like
Oh,
less than a year and a half later, COVID happened. And where we got to the point of kind of like attracting like different types of professionals was honestly learning from our clientele. Like, at first, our clientele was a lot of nurses who just wanted to get fit and work around shift work because that was who I was and what I was doing. But then we started having more pregnant clients, and
Mm.
then more perimenopausal women, and then more postmenopausal or like medically induced menopause clients, and then male clients, and then women with hypothyroidism and PCOS and endometriosis. And then we also, discovered a lot of like the mindset setbacks for certain people. So we started putting our own coaches through, perinatal certifications, menopause coaching specialist certifications, HMCC, like the health mindset coaching certification. And also, I don't know if you're familiar with Sam Miller's functional nutrition and
Oh,
metabolism
yeah, yeah,
science.
yeah, I know Sam. I've met him
Yeah.
quite a
So
few
like,
times, yeah.
yeah. So like once a year, we would kind of, keep trying to like level up the staff. And as we did that, also attracting like some RDs and other types of coaches. And as we did that, that also like broadened the type of clientele that we were able to service. And so kind of like as the clientele grew, the coaching staff was also able to grow and bring in more specialists.
Well, and I think that's really important for people out there, and then I definitely wanna get into more of the applicable stuff in your programming, but, um, where for people out there, if you're looking for a coach or looking to have someone help guide you through your health journey, are they kinda stick in the mud with, they have maybe they genetically were gifted, put in some hard work and accomplished some things in said discipline, maybe it's a physique sport, what have you, or are they someone who maybe they did those, maybe they didn't, but they also continue to learn, continue to
Yeah.
evolve their approach, whether it's through additional credentials or just expanding their team. Because I know for me, I was that person where it was like, I wanted to know it all. I need to be the expert in everything. And then I realized as I matured more, like, oh, well, this person over here has been studying like that one specific topic for 15 years. Like, I'm never gonna be
Yeah.
at that level, and so, yes, I should know enough to know enough about it to know when I need to refer or defer to that person, but it's so much more empowering, I think, and a better, uh, journey or health offering for people if you have those different collaborative, experts coming together in your team, which it sounds like you have, which that's fantastic.
Yeah, I really view it as essential because I think if you don't expand the qualifications, then there's just like only one type of person that you can help. And if you're trying to help anybody outside of that box, you're doing them a disservice. And there are a lot of, coaches or coaching programs out there that's like, these are the workouts. They're the
Right,
same as every other client in the community. You're going to work out this many days a week. You have to get 10K steps no matter what. You're going to be like in a big calorie deficit, and this is exactly, you're going to eat the same things as everybody else. And they kind of like funnel people through maybe a more set system that's not really customizable to the individual. And then people feel frustrated, they feel like failures, they feel weak that they can't follow through, or it doesn't work for them and they wonder what's wrong with their body. They build a lot of skepticism around online coaches and think that they're all just out for money and pumping out cookie cutter stuff.
right,
And I have found that like the more you can customize an approach truly to the client, the more successful they're going to be. Like sometimes when people ask me like, well, what's it going to be like once I'm in your coaching? I'm like, I actually can't tell you that just yet because I need to talk to you and
right,
I need to get your questionnaire, and I need to know how old are you? How much do you exercise now? What's your day-to-day life like? What's your job like? Like how much time do you have? Do you have kids? Where in the world do you live? What kind of foods do you have access to?
right.
Like what are your medical conditions? And like from there, the coaching needs to be geared specifically to that individual. And once you do that, it's actually easy for people to succeed. Like not that the work is easy. It still takes
Right.
that diligence and that follow through, but it's simple, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely. It actually kind of transitions nicely to, like, my next question, which was about, I know you do more than this, but one of the areas that you provide a lot of value in is in the, pregnancy, folks trying to get pregnant during pregnancy, then, postpartum. Walk me through that approach. What inspired you to get involved in that space? And then I would love to tackle some other tips, myths, etc., as we kind of
Yeah.
walk through that.
So what moved me to get into that was definitely experiencing pregnancy myself for the first time. We are IVF parents, so we had a lot of fertility struggles, which, despite being a difficult life experience, was actually really incredible for my coaching career,
Mhm.
because having to understand so much more of the connection between lifestyle and fertility just like awakened my understanding of hormones, and especially for women, the impact that, I mean, men's fertility matters too, but especially for women and how sensitive we are to fertility. So I was already kind of getting into it, and I had been doing IVF for about a year and a half when fortunately I was able to become pregnant. And then like in my first trimester, I got perinatal certified because I wanted the information for myself. And then experiencing pregnancy, I can say one of the things that perhaps I'm, embarrassed of, or like past daily used to do, is thinking that pregnancy workouts didn't really need to be that different from, general population client workouts. And that's not the case. That's not the case at all. There's just like so many different considerations. And I realized like what an amazing opportunity to level up and just
Mhm.
create, whether it's nutrition guidance, exact workouts for women like by week of gestation. And it was really neat because I got the certification and then I kind of got to document my experience every step of the way. And from that, really build out perinatal programs that consider the exact perspective and experience of a pregnant woman, as opposed to just like maybe reading it in a textbook or making assumptions about what it's like, and having them in a program that's kind of for every other woman on the team as well.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, so someone's, if we take it at the starting phase for women, we kind of hone in on women, what are some things out there that you see have them be things to avoid or maybe tips to do more of if one is trying to, uh, conceive and trying to improve their fertility health? Because I think you made a really good point there about the lifestyle part. There certainly are physicians that specialize in like the actual, you know, minute details, but there's so much
Yes.
more that affect that cascade to that end result of pregnant, not pregnant, or conceiving, So I'm just curious to what have you found and what are some of your philosophies and approaches there?
Yeah, the biggest one has got to be sleep and stress, which I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's the one that I don't wanna care about." Like, give me the supplement list to buy. Like, I wanna go
Right.
buy the
What can I buy?
omegas and
Yeah.
like, yeah, like what can I buy? Or like, most women don't struggle with the working out. It's like I love my fitness classes and I love sweating, and they might be, wanting tips more in that realm. But at the end of the day, like, man, ovulation and ovulation regularity is sensitive to stress. I feel like every woman has also experienced getting sick before. And like,
Mhm.
whether it's like a cold or the flu or even COVID, and then their periods late. And you realize the sensitivity of a woman's like fertility and cycles, that, any kind of event and like that affects your health can completely throw off your hormonal cascade. And it may even take a couple of months for that to reconcile. You really can't overcome if you're sleeping 5 hours a night. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do during the day to overcome that. Like, we really need to try whatever we can to be getting like 7 hours of sleep. I'm not going to go so far as to say like all women have to be getting 9. But let's really try to be getting 7, and taking stress seriously. Even if you're the kind of person that's been tolerating stress for a long time, so you no longer have the impression of being stressed, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that your internal physiology is matching that. I actually got to a point in my career, this was prior to IVF and learning about this. I was working 14, 18-hour days. I just like loved my business. It was so exciting. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. I was fasting till noon or 1 because I was just like, 4 to 6 cups of coffee a day, working, burning the midnight oil. And I thought that my body was kind of impenetrable. And I was just like, I'm a high performer. I don't need rest the same way. I don't have to follow the other rules. Well, my hormones told a different story once we actually started to look under the hood.
Mm.
And testosterone was low, thyroid was subclinical, progesterone was low, all things that would negatively impact pregnancy. And the key things that I did immediately to to fix this was sleeping more and sleeping in, massively cutting back on caffeine, removing fasting, and actually getting into morning walks, which you mentioned earlier. And like now you make that like getting a morning walk and like out in the sun. And I started doing that in like 2020, 2021 when I started caring about my fertility. But it has to be the sleep and lowering stress are going to be the biggest needle movers.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's think back to living in caves or hunter gatherer times, right? It's like if your body is starving or feels like it's running, has to constantly run from a saber-toothed tiger, to use that analogy, that's definitely overused. But
But I still love it.
yeah, it's gonna shut down. It's gonna have to down-regulate something. And of course,
Yes.
if you're in a survival mode, let's go ahead and down-regulate reproduction. Like that makes complete sense. All the amazing things the human body can do, of course that would happen. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of times in our modern society, we think I'm not stressed, and it's like, no, 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 you're really, really good at just pushing the stress off. But like when we look at your blood work, to your point, or we kind of
Yes.
take a deeper look, the body's saying, you are
Yeah.
stressed, and like we're in
Yeah.
survival mode.
And the tricky thing about stress is at first when cortisol is like going up, before perhaps you get to a point of cortisol actually being low, which is, if you're like really far down the stressful roads,
Right.
cortisol feels good. Like,
Yes.
I feel like it's confusing for women, myself included, because my fasting cortisol was elevated during this period that I talked about, and you feel powerful, and you're not hungry, and you're focused, and you're energized, and the caffeine gives you like a buzz, and you're kind of like, outgoing, and you feel like you can take on the day. And so if somebody were to ask you like, "Are you stressed? You need to slow down." You're like, "I'm killing it every
Right.
morning." But that can actually sometimes be a negative sign of something going on.
And what are some tips you see out there of like what someone can either do to, I guess you could do both or pick one, but how can one identify I might be overstressed? My cortisol might be in overdrive. I guess would be my first question.
Yeah, so I love the test, don't guess. If you have questions about it, I'm a big like, let's do testing.
Right.
Especially coming from a nursing background, it's difficult to always just interpret symptoms and lifestyle because frankly, in my career too, I've seen clients where on the outside, I would assume I'm like, oof, I'm ready for that cortisol level to come back. Like it's got to
Mm,
be elevated and it's not. Everyone's physiology is so different. And then I see other people where you wouldn't think that they have such a significant issue. And then not only is cortisol influenced, but our thyroid axis is influenced as well. And so test, don't guess, and go get labs because that's the most powerful information for us to make changes on, getting that hard data.
yeah. No, it's a great point because it's just especially something that is such a life-changing event, bringing a child into this world, to where if you are having some struggles and you think that might have something to do with it, it's relatively you know it's a minor inconvenience to test that. It's not that
Yeah,
expensive. It's not, some super advanced, lengthy diagnostic. We have to travel somewhere and all these things. This is something you can get some
absolutely.
immediate feedback and then kind of work through it. I think as a follow-up, I'd like to ask, like, what are some tips or things you see that either helped you or help your clients today in that state and kind of backing down and balancing out all their stress response?
Yeah. So a big one can be, pulling anything that's an obvious stressor. So when I say obvious stressor, excess caffeine. If we're, I've had clients where we do caffeine logs and we're having 700 milligrams a day. So that's going to
Mm,
be an easy thing to just like, we're going to drink less. Trying to get caffeine to 200 milligrams or less, maybe 300 is an upper limit. If we're doing a lot of like hit cardio and like all of the forms of exercise that we're doing is very high intensity, we're going to back that down. Or if we're resistance training and we're taking every single set to failure and we're training 5 or 6 days a week, we're going to lower that volume and also lower like the reps in reserve and try not to be like, going for broke every single rep. I usually like to incorporate more walking. Like for some people that are doing a lot of cardio, perhaps it's a period of time where we pull cardio all together, but we focus on like a 10K step goal or 8K step goal, something that's lower impact, but we're still moving, supporting our body, being healthy, and maintaining a certain like caloric output for our intake. And then like, what's our dieting status? When we're looking at stress too, like some people might be stressed because of overconsumption in their history. Alternatively, some people might be stressed because of underconsumption for a very long time. And so if it's somebody that's like, I haven't eaten 1,500 calories or more in the last 3 years, that's obviously going to be somewhere where we're going to focus pretty promptly and try to get the body some more energy.
And is something that you look at as well, or would encourage women to look at, is it, monitoring, tracking their menstrual cycle and look for irregularities to kind of maybe be a signal there? Is that something that you've noticed as helpful? And if so, like, how do you use that? Or
Yeah, I think it's immensely helpful to know your ovulation status. And I did not learn how to track my ovulation until I was 31 years old, and I was a labor and delivery nurse. Like, that's wild to me that I had to go figure out how to do it on my own, and I got the period repair manual book, and that's where I figured out how to track my cycle for the first time. But to just know if you're ovulating, because if you're ovulating and you're ovulating with regularity, meaning like your cycles average the same length month to month within like maybe 2 to 5 days, that is a good sign. It's a good, like, box to check for our hormonal health. So this wouldn't apply to women that are on oral contraceptives because they would not be ovulating. And depending on the form of IUD, if you are an IUD user, some IUDs allow us to ovulate, others block ovulation. So if you are using birth control, it's important to check that first because you might worry that you're not ovulating, but the medication that you're taking might not be like stopping your body from doing that anyways. But if you are not on hormonal birth control, I really like LH strips are really cheap on Amazon. You can test your morning urine to see whenever your LH surges and confirm ovulation a couple of days later by that basal body temp. My Aura Ring tracks my cycle, so that's what I use now. Natural Cycles is a really popular company that has that oral thermometer, and you wake up every morning, take your temperature, and this helps you identify ovulation when you put it in the app. And so it's really easy to do. If you even, take your temperatures once a day for the next month, you can likely determine if you're ovulating or not.
yeah, got it. No, interesting. A lot of resources out there for sure. When you so kind of transitioning into um working out when one's pregnant, is there, what are, I guess my first thing I'd like to open up with in that state would be, what are some common myths that you learned through your journey that, is just a misunderstanding and you still kind of hear women bring this up? And is it trimester specific? Yeah, what does that look like?
There are still strong myths that you shouldn't exercise during pregnancy. Earlier how we were talking about like weightlifting being normalized versus like taboo.
Mhm.
Lifting during pregnancy is still very taboo. We seem to be comfortable with women that are pregnant walking and doing yoga. Nobody really has qualms about that. But you show a woman with an abdomen like back squatting, and I have read the comments on these posts like as of current, and there is a lot of rhetoric out there that it's hurting the baby, that you're going to miscarry, that you're going to, cause a stillbirth or a bad outcome, that it's stealing energy from the baby and you're being selfish, that you're giving the energy to your own muscles as opposed to your baby.
Mm,
When what's wild is the American College of Obstetrics, who sets the guidelines for like healthy, normal pregnancies for what women should do, specifically says that women should be exercising at least 150 minutes per week through every single trimester, and that resistance training is one of the approved exercises. You'll also hear myths about like pregnant women should never lift over, I've heard 20 pounds, 30 pounds, just these arbitrary numbers in terms of pounds, and that their
mhm,
heart rate should never exceed like 140. These have also been debunked, but they're still circulating out there. Like we now know that women that are, especially women that are runners, pre-pregnancy can safely run as long as their OB midwife approves of them to do so. And of course, their heart rate's going to be over 140 and there's, minimal risk there. And these arbitrary numbers of, how many pounds a pregnant woman shouldn't lift are unhelpful because every woman's baseline strength is going to be different. For a woman
Yeah.
who maybe doesn't weight lift right now, 30 pounds, 40 pounds could be a lot of weight for her. So, like, yeah, maybe she shouldn't be lifting that out the gate if she's brand new to the weight room. But for other women like myself, that might be a very small, not impactful amount of weight. My toddler weighs more than that, and I'm carrying him around all throughout the day. And so it's also kind of needing to decipher from like these blanket statement numbers that apply to the entire population and realizing that that doesn't make sense because all women are different.
No, that does make a lot of sense, and I'm curious to shifting. I mean, to like, I guess the first thing I would ask is maybe more broader exercises or other things to help with a healthier pregnancy, easier, I guess is a relative term, but I guess I can't think of another word right now, but easier
Yeah,
delivery,
yeah. No, I know
easier
what you mean.
recovery. Like, are there things that maybe women could incorporate that maybe they're not doing during those phases, to help with things?
Yeah, so resistance training for sure, because your body being stronger is going to be more resilient to how your center of gravity is going to be altered. Back pain is a huge issue for women in
Mm,
pregnancy. And if you are not training your posterior chain, meaning all of the muscles that run on your backside, it's going to be really uncomfortable. Those muscles are going to be weak. They're just not going to be able to support your abdomen as much. And you might suffer from a lot more like hip, pelvic, and back pain. So I focus a lot on training the glutes, the hamstrings, the erectors, the lats, like all of the muscles in the back. And the clients that go through these training programs often report zero back pain their entire pregnancy. I was fortunate enough as well. I followed these programs, and back pain was never something that I struggled with, even after delivering like, an 8-pound baby and going all the way to term. And then having some degree of aerobic exercise as well. Pregnancy makes us super out of breath. Just
mm,
walking can kind of get that heart rate up so much. And so training your heart, because it's doing a lot of extra work. The average pregnant woman has another 1.5 liters of blood volume that you're circulating at any given time. So imagine all of that demand being put on your heart, which is a muscle. So I think
right.
that the most helpful programs for pregnant women have 2 to 4 lifting days per week, and 1 to 3 cardio. I find 1 to 2 is a little bit more sustainable, but if it's somebody that's really into cardio, up to like 1 to 3 aerobic um, exercise sessions per week. And then as we get further into pregnancy, definitely like stretching and mobility, like these really help because your body is constantly stretching and like needing things to be adjusted. And so some of that like recovery care becomes more and more important as we get further in the second trimester and then the third.
No, and I would imagine that that's gonna help a lot, which I know we haven't got there yet, but just kind of more on the recovery side. So post, just I'm just thinking of, you've been carrying a lot of this weight and fluid and space, et cetera, trying to move, definitely a different way. And then, say a month, 2 months after, that movement's different. And just as you mentioned, the back, I would imagine the strain could be also, knees, et cetera.
Oh my gosh,
That
yes.
someone's changing. So yeah, just as you're describing that, I mean, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And I think there's like an under appreciation of just getting contractile tissues to contract just in general. Like even if the
Yes.
resistance is very minor, it's just still helps keep the signaling strong, the lean tissue active, etc. But yeah, um, after, what are some things from recovery standpoint that you're implementing out there that you're seeing? Are there any myths?
Postpartum.
Yeah, postpartum, yes, and
Yeah. So in general, I definitely find that women that are more active during pregnancy do just objectively have an easier time postpartum because their bodies are stronger. They have more muscle in their frame. And they're more comfortable with movement and typically more in tune with their body from practicing exercise all throughout pregnancy, a period of time when your body is never changing more rapidly than during those 9 months. And so you become very in tune with yourself. And so these clients are typically more comfortable walking sooner and just like moving around in general. They typically know like recovery and core and pelvic floor rehabilitation exercises that they can perform, or they're in a program that offers that. I mean, we make available to our clients pelvic floor, like gentle exercises that you can safely do as early as 2 weeks
Mm.
postpartum. And so by the time a lot of our clients are even getting to that, 7 week postpartum appointment, they've already lost more weight. They're moving. They've already started like reintegrating their core strength. Their posture is better. And when they return to exercise, it's just far easier because they haven't been out of exercise for as long. Some women get that positive pregnancy test and they stop exercising altogether, perhaps just because they were misinformed and they don't have the resources to know what to do. But it's really, really difficult, like, to establish a new fitness routine when you're sleep deprived and you just delivered a baby. Even when you're 2-3 months postpartum, your body's still going through so much. You might even have some like mood disturbances. It's really difficult to come back from behind when maybe it's been a year since you exercised and do it then, versus when you exercise during pregnancy, maybe it's only been like a month or a month and a half since you were working out, and you just fall right back into it and you feel strong and you feel capable and you can baby wear, and even like breastfeeding feels easier, holding your baby feels easier, activities of daily living, everything is just easier with a stronger body.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think I think, the other part that I was just curious to what you're experiencing with women, and we'll get into later in life as far as perimenopause, menopause as well. I'm sure there's a lot of similarities, but um, you know, one of the things I think is could be overlooked from a nutrition and exercise standpoint, postpartum is the effectiveness of helping manage mood, helping manage hormones, helping realign those, restabilize those things. Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe some of the benefits that you've seen with clients, and if there's anything out there to connect the dots of like how does that all interplay together?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Exercise has a huge positive impact on mood. And we do know that exercise and movement and being outside can lower the risk of postpartum depression or even the severity of symptoms of postpartum depression. And when it comes to nutrition, eating enough food can also stabilize mood and lower our risk and lower the symptoms and severity, because whenever we are super fatigued and sleep deprived, if we are also completely sedentary and under eating, it's creating a ticking time bomb situation where it's going to be a lot more difficult to cope. And so it's like even when we feel tired, there's still small amounts of gentle exercise that we can do, whether it's body weight movement at home or even just like walks around the block, that even in a fatigued state can have so many benefits for our mental health that it outweighs any risks of moving our body when we're tired, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
yeah. No, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the difference between our first and our second. And just I remember, you know, the second time, like everyone else, I'm sure can, remember this time frame if you have more than one child. But we had such a better plan to manage our sleep, our activity, all of the above. Because man, that first one, it was like, oh, she moved. She moved. Like, is she okay? Is she okay? I
Yeah.
mean, it was like I remember never sleeping, like standing in the middle of the gym, being like, I don't know where I'm at right now. Like, what am I supposed to do? But it was just not having some kind of plan. And what I found at least was things, even like very moderate things like walking or,
Yes.
a class or whatever the case is. And I know with my wife, that was the same thing, was like getting some routine normalcy to take care of herself, although it was difficult to get the ball rolling. Like, totally get
Mhm.
it. So I don't want people out there to think like you go from, you know, brand new baby to like you're right back to getting in your marathon training and your most hit
Absolutely.
stuff. but just to kind of working it back in, there's just so many benefits.
Yeah, and there's also just like such big identity shifts when you become when it's your first, you need something to kind of sometimes anchor you in your previous life and identity and body. And your exercise habits can do that for you. And like one other thing that came to mind too is um some of the symptoms postpartum of like incontinence and bladder leaking and even prolapse. These are things that exercise can not only help prevent, but can also help address early postpartum. And like I recently had a client who's 40, IVF mom of two, didn't exercise her first pregnancy and then coached with us her entire second pregnancy and messaged me at a month postpartum. And she was like, I didn't know that it was possible to have a baby and not pee every time that you cough. Like she's like,
Yeah.
and sneeze. Like I was just expecting that to happen. But she was like, my pelvic floor is just so much stronger, even without any exercise postpartum, that she also had a much better experience because all of these like symptoms that some women can struggle with were just off the table for her and she just didn't have to deal with them.
Yeah, no, and that's always, I would say probably interesting because you have the same person, and comparing between doing it and not doing it and just their own unique experience, is can definitely be impactful for some. I'm curious, just if we move into, broad label here, but more like mindset of high performers. So if there's,
Yeah.
I think there's different definitions for high performers. So some people I would encourage you not to tune out when you hear that. If it doesn't mean a certain title or something of that nature, certainly there are more, very, very demanding outside of the home jobs, but there's a lot inside as well. That you would still be labeled a high performer, if you will. What are some things that you see with those kind of more high performer women that are coming to see you? What's the mindset like? What are some potential obstacles or struggles they're facing?
It's gotta be the all or nothing and perfectionist mindset, which I wish so badly that we could just eradicate this from from the face of the earth. But I like that you pointed out that high performers doesn't just mean that you have some high powered job. Because I think a lot of people
Yeah,
do think, well, like I'm not corporate, working
right,
70 hours a week, so I'm not a high performer. Stay-at-home moms, you are a high performer. Like there's a lot of
right,
different, definitions of that. And I find that people that are high performers are always doing so much and holding themselves to such a standard. They never kind of let themselves relax. And so they want everything that they do to be perfect. And if they can't do it to the level of perfection and do it like all of it, they often fail to see the benefit of doing something at all. And in a health and fitness context, that's just not the way that it works. Like your body would much rather you exercise this week for 10 minutes than push off a workout till next week
right,
until you can get to the gym for a full hour. Like 5-minute walks count, exercise snacks count, like doing 10 squats in your kitchen while you're waiting for something to heat up in the microwave counts. Eating one serving of vegetables counts, even if the rest of your diet that day is all over the place. If you went out drinking, like having a smoothie the next morning does count. It does
right,
help. It's not like a
right.
total wash where you might as well go through the drive-through. And I wish high performers would kind of understand it's not all or nothing. It's the always something, which I've seen you say as well. And that's like my biggest mantra for my clients.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so applicable in so many other areas. You look at some of like for me, it's the fall right now when we're recording this, so it's for me at least it's football season. I volunteer locally and coach
Oh,
some of the
that's cool.
younger fellas, and one of the things, being from Michigan, I don't love to admit it, but I will say like Nick Saban is definitely accomplished a few things, and one of his things was
Yeah.
always like preaching was like, it's all about the process, the process, the process, the process. So I think if we can apply some of those, we apply those to sports a lot. Applying that to life it's just a part of the process. Like,
Yeah.
progress over perfection is another things like I'll tell the kids, or I try to remind myself because I'm definitely someone who would be leaning towards, like I remember going through a phase where, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with this, where like there's training and then there's working out. Like if I'm
Yes.
not training, it took me a long time to realize because I did so many training goals and such, that as life progressed, and I just like, even right now, I can't commit to training the way I would like to. And that's okay. So I'm going to work out. I'm going to
Yes.
monitor my health, better mental health, less stressed, more whatever. And then as soon as something falls off, the plate, the season ends, whatever, if I want to, boom, I can jump back in and just get back on a more aggressive like training program with an end date, with a goal in mind. And I think sometimes that can definitely be lost, at least for me. And just curious if that's something that kind of, you've seen as well with people.
Oh, like everything that you just said resonates with me 1,000,000%, not just with my clientele, but with myself. Like, I used to only think that a workout was a good workout if you achieved progressive overload, like in that workout, and if
Yeah.
you're not PRing, it doesn't count. Now I am the 25-minute workout warrior. And it did take a lot of time to get there. It was really difficult to kind of rewire and let that be a win. But I think sometimes the perfectionist go-getters think that they are really tough and that that's a really admirable quality. And what I actually learned for myself is it's kind of fear driven and
Mhm.
insecurity driven, because if you can't be perfect and there's any risk of failure or not doing something like to the nth degree or being like embarrassed, you're just not going to do it at all. You're not
Yeah,
you
100%.
can't cope with a workout that's 25 minutes. Like, you don't know how to accept that. And I think it actually takes a lot of bravery to like lower the bar for your wins and say like, I can't do this, but I'm going to be brave enough to admit that I can't do that today. But as opposed to doing nothing, I'm going to meet myself here and I'm going to celebrate being here, and I'm going to celebrate a 25-minute workout. I'm going to celebrate one meal that's healthy today, even if the rest of the meals kind of suck and I don't have it all together. I'm going to celebrate one good night's sleep this week where I turned Netflix off and I went to bed a little bit earlier, and just trying to like be brave enough to move that bar and like stop putting the bar so high on yourself.
Yeah, and I think, with in the topic of nutrition, I've seen this a lot recently, just with, family, friends, etc., where it's like, my coach wants me to eat this much protein and I can't. I'm like, did you tell him you can't? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, so what did you do instead? Why? To stop counting it? I'm like, no, 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 no. If they told you to eat 150 grams and you're only eating 60, try to eat 80, try to eat 70. And then the
Yes.
next week go to 90. Then
Thank
the
you.
next week go to, and just build up, It's like, and like, oh, I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like, and
Yes,
please
it's
tell your coach,
okay.
because the numbers they gave you are correct, but you have to explain that as well. It's a two-way street, that, hey, I'm here and I'm having a hard time getting there. And then a lot of times, women, men, all the above, like you just said, they'll just throw it all out. Just like, oh, I'm just not doing it. I'm just not tracking it because I can't do it. It's like, no, no, no. It's
Yeah, like
not,
if
it's not there to be a
150 grams
reminder
is
of
too
your plate.
hard, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, as you get into that, when we're talking about habits, relative to, say, women as they're progressing in life, like 35 plus, let's if we take that kind of next phase, what are some common myths or obstacles you see, specifically in like the realm of nutrition? What are some things you're seeing a lot in women's health in that area?
I feel like a lot of the myths are around kind of the extreme dieting that sometimes resurges around this age, because women start to encounter hormonal changes. Weight loss becomes more difficult, and it does in a lot of ways. And there are hormonal changes to point to, but like they feel like they used to be able to eat whatever they wanted in their 20s, work out a little bit, they could have indulgences and they could work it off like that same week. Now it's harder over 35, and so I'm going to look for more extreme measures like fasting, like going keto, like
Mm.
going carnivore. And as opposed to thinking like, okay, like how much am I moving? Like, am I just exercising and walking enough? And have I actually tracked my nutrition, and like have I explored, a moderate calorie deficit and just done that for a period of time consistently to see if my body can change in sustainable ways? It's kind of like a panic that it's all downhill and you're totally screwed and your metabolism is just like, goes to hell after 35. And so now you have to do these extreme things in the body that honestly usually cause more issues, dig you a deeper hole, and now you're having to even come back to baseline from completely cutting carbohydrates from your diet, or going into extreme calorie deficits where now, like, your stress is upregulated and your thyroid's downregulated, or you're potentially worsening autoimmune conditions that really poke their head up for a lot of women in their 30s and around these ages. And that you just like, we don't need to start going extreme in order to lose weight and change our bodies. Like, we can do that in safe, thoughtful ways that's not going to just create 10 more problems that you need to fix.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious, on the topic of nutrition related to fiber and protein. And I could share my anecdotes too, but I'm just curious, what do you see with women? Are those areas they struggle with? Is it something out of sight, out of mind? Is it something they're dialed in on? Like what and how important are those two in your view, for like a women's overall health and hormone health?
Yeah, they're enormously important. Like, you probably picked the top most important things. In my experience, most women are under consuming protein. Very few women are getting enough fiber.
Mhm.
We don't usually struggle as much with our carbohydrates, and fats are typically the easiest ones. Like, I rarely encounter a client that's under consuming their fat macros. When it comes to protein, especially as we age, there is an increased risk of sarcopenia, which is age related muscle loss. And in particular, like, if you're not participating in a resistance training program, or maybe the exercise is more cardio focused, that risk can be higher. And so we typically require more protein as we age. Another benefit of thoughtfully consuming more protein is not just because of our body's needs, but also because protein is the macro of satiety as compared to carbs and fats, and it
Mhm.
keeps us fuller longer. And a lot of women, as they get older, they might deal with appetite changes with shifting estrogen levels and hormonal changes, and we can see a decrease in insulin sensitivity. So we want to be, staying fuller longer and not eating high carb snacks all throughout the day to balance out with perhaps the changes in insulin sensitivity. And so protein can be a huge asset in helping women feel fuller, less snacky, and not consuming as much food. And right behind that comes fiber. Fiber also helps us feel fuller, longer, and more satiated from meals. And it's not even just about the exact fiber, it's how we get the fiber that I think helps us the most. Because if you are trying to create a plate that has like at least 8 to 10 grams of fiber, there's going to be fruits, there's going to be vegetables, there's going to be legumes, there's going to be a high volume of micronutrient dense foods on that plate. Like, bread doesn't have a lot of fiber in it, cookies don't have fiber in them, like
Right.
sugar doesn't have fiber in it. Ultra processed foods tend to be completely absent in fiber. And so if you make fiber a focus and you make protein a focus, you're eating enormous plates of food that are giving your body so many vitamins and minerals all throughout the day, where these women often feel like they're eating the most that they ever have in their entire life. They're
Right.
over 40 and they're eating more than they have in their 20s or their 30s, and they feel completely full while even potentially being in a calorie deficit, watching their bodies get leaner and achieving their weight loss easily.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. And there's a lot of uh, tasty ways to even hit both of those. Like I know one of the snacks, I call it a snack, but I shifted. I had someone on a while back and they were talking about fiber. I'm like, I haven't tracked mine. I tracked and was like, oh my gosh. Like one day it was like single digit, like maybe 5 grams as a 240 something pound
It's
male.
it's
I'm like,
easy
I'm
for that
not
to
a small
happen.
guy and I eat a lot. And I did like a Greek yogurt with a little bit. I happen to like the flavor of this whey protein. So that's why I just added it for an additional protein and a bunch of fruit. And there was like a fiber, oh gosh, what was it? It wasn't flaxseed, but it was something. I know what it is. I'm just drawing a blank, but I would put a little bit of that in and mix it up, and I didn't even taste it. And it was just like, not only did it totally change for me personally, even we talk about ebbs and flows in life and different like stressful times or times where I was working more, my sleep was disrupted more. I wasn't snacking as much. And then,
Yeah,
but I forget if it was like 10 or 12 grams, like right there, and just that
right in
one
one
like
meal.
little treat that I was doing. And I think for a lot of people out there, men and women, um, I think there's like 2 things that come to mind as you're talking, I was thinking about, and one is, specifically with fiber, I see a lot of, gut health tests and looking at, like, gut dysbiosis, and a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, it's simply, like, the most inexpensive, simple thing to fix. It's like, "Yeah, you're just not
Yeah.
taking in food that feeds that type of bacteria, and that's why it's low and that one's really high." And they're like, "Oh." And it's like, "Yeah, that's it. Tell us how you
Yes.
feel in 4 weeks," or whatever the time frame is.
Yes. No,
Um
I love that you recommend that, and, like, I call them yogurt bowls, like what you're
Mhm.
referring to. I have them, like, almost every day because I think that, like, especially women talk to me a lot about, "Oh, well, I just, like, don't like the flavor of meat a lot, and I have a sweet tooth." Okay, then let's get you some yogurt bowls. Greek yogurt is your base. You put in some whey protein or vegan protein of your preference. Well, you wouldn't be vegan eating Greek yogurt, but put in, like,
Yeah,
the powder of your preference and
sure.
then load it up with berries, and you're getting like probiotics, prebiotics, fiber, and often like 50 grams of protein
Right.
easily in those bowls and like multiple colors. I like to do strawberries and blueberries and banana. And like you will not even think about food for the next 4 hours too. And you're eating like sweet, delicious yogurt because like I like a Legion cinnamon cereal whey in mine. So it's like cinnamon yogurt with
Oh,
berries and I do
nice.
granola on top. Like, tell me that's not delicious. And
That's actually a good one. I have not added cinnamon, so I'm gonna have to steal that. I'm definitely gonna have to do
yeah,
that.
cinnamon is also great for us. But I think that's always like my go-to for people that are like, but I hate chicken. I'm like, okay, then you can eat protein and you can eat these foods without having to go like the meat way.
Yeah, and I think with protein, as you were mentioning that, I mean, that's a great point. One of the things I hear a lot of is, "Well, I eat a lot of protein. I had a fill in the blank." And I'm like, "That saying a food source doesn't," and sometimes food source is wrong, but I always just try to encourage people just for once in your life. I know it's boring, I know it's overwhelming, but just do it for like a couple days. Measure and weigh your food,
Yes.
and then you'll know because I eat steak, and I'm like, "What does that mean? Like, what do you mean you
Yes.
have it once a week? Like, did you have it every day? And then did you have 1 ounce or did you have 7 ounces?" Like, these are such massive differences, and I don't say that, I say that kind of with a smile on my face right now. I'm not
Of
picking on anyone.
course.
It's just trying to get people to think about what they're saying and how much specifics is missing, but how easy it is to get that. Like, I was just
Yeah.
talking to someone the other day, just a friend, where I'm like, "Hey, listen, weigh it once, compare it to your hand, and then there you go. Like, oh, if I have about this, it's
Memorize
about
it.
4 ounces, a little over 4. It's a roughly 7 grams per ounce. I'm about 30 grams ish in this meal." Like, you don't have to be, you know, we're not in a lab. So, like, if you're off by
Yeah.
a gram or 2 here or there, you're going to be fine, but just ballpark. And that, I think it's just so much more empowering to just have like a general understanding of what you're consuming in a day, and like you said, taking a look at that. And that's where, if you're struggling, you could use supplements forever. You could use it just to get you into kind of that rhythm and help you fill a gap, or when you're in a bind. There's a lot of different ways and utilities to use that. So
Yeah,
it
information is power. And just like knowing, I completely agree with you, just having a baseline of what you're consuming. Because if you have a perception that you're eating a lot of protein and you're really frustrated because you're not satiated and your muscles aren't growing and you're having difficulty with performance, that's a really frustrating situation. But what if you could determine in 24 to 48 hours that you're actually under consuming protein? How amazing would that be to find out? That wouldn't be a bummer. That would be incredible because that is an easy, low stakes intervention that we can now fix to address all of these problems and symptoms that you're having.
Yeah, no, no, so true. And I because I have a screen of our notes as we're talking here up, but I just glanced at something where I'm like, "Oh, I didn't talk about it," but I won't go back, I promise. For everybody out there, we'll get to it in a little bit as we're kind of winding down, but we will get to where to find your content. But you have some great posts about going back to the pregnancy and weightlifting and all the benefits to decrease risk and things. So I think selfishly, if you don't mind, I'm going to pull it up.
No, not at
Because
all.
now I got this squirrel moment, and hopefully I'm not being too rude, but I just wanted to point this post out for everybody. If you're on audio, definitely we'll have it in the show notes. All of ways to follow for content and stuff. But I just thought this was a great post that caught my eye earlier about types of
Yeah.
delivery, decreasing all of the above, as you were mentioning earlier, and decreasing the risk, several risk factors in both children and women. So,
Yeah.
um, anyways, squirrel moment. I apologize.
No, I love that. And there's a stat in there that I think is powerful, that despite recommendations for exercise, only like 40% of pregnant women get the recommended amount of exercise, which is why it's so important to be having these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a big one. And I just want to put out one more thing I really like about this post specifically is the sources are there, because I always just tell people, if you're following an influencer or what have you, and you really like their personality, that's great. But do they ever post their sources and and
Yeah,
references? So that's a flag. Like if they don't, if they never do, like I get sometimes you post something and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to link
sure.
this or whatever. But like, do they never do that? Or are they always talking like in generalities about everything? And it's like,
Yeah,
well, because that's like every article I write, I always put my citations in the bottom. It's just what I was taught in school to do. And it's like, if you disagree with me, don't come at me with an emotional argument. Just go ahead and pick apart what I just cited and tell
yes,
me where I'm wrong. Because I'm not sharing my personal opinion. I was not even in the lab that did this. I'm
yes,
just simply interpreting what I read and sharing it to help people. And if you think I'm wrong, or that you're really not saying I'm wrong, my interpretation's wrong, sure, but let's tackle it. So,
yeah.
um,
Oh, I
I'll
love
get
that
us
you do
back on track. I apologize.
that
I did want to hit a couple other points selfishly before we wrap, if you don't mind.
Not at
I was
all.
wondering if you could talk briefly, and then we'll hit a little bit on some menopausal, perimenopause things, but briefly about the M4 method. Um, what is the M4 method, and how does that apply to your approach? And yeah, I'd love to share that with the audience out there.
Yeah, so it's a way that we describe like the pillars of our coaching program, which are metabolism, macros, movement, and mindset. So the four M's. And the way that we work through these, I mean, it is highly variable to the exact client that we're working with. But first and foremost, looking at the metabolism, it's like, is it optimized? What's our, health status here? How's our hormones? How is our metabolism? How's our biofeedback? And what like root cause issues are there that we need to address first until we can achieve the ultimate like health and aesthetic goals that we want. Macros is kind of an all-encompassing term for nutrition because most of our clients do some degree of macro tracking just to get that information, but we use a lot of non-tracking methods as well to make sure we're getting enough protein, carbs, fat, fiber, like basically the previous conversation that we just had about like, are we eating the right types of foods to support our body, our health, and make it easy to achieve our transformation goals? Movement is exercise and walking. So we're looking at the non-exercise activity. We're looking at cardio, and we're looking at resistance training. We incorporate resistance training to some degree in all of our programs because of the importance, in particular for women and women over 35 for sure. And so it's customizing that to the individual. How much are we doing of all three of those? Where are we doing it? And what types of workouts does this particular client enjoy the most so that we can move more consistently over time. And then finally, mindset. This is probably an area of coaching that prior to the M4 method, I kind of just hoped would work itself out. I am a very science background person, so I love the protocols, I love the workouts, I love the nutrition. And sometimes I would get hyper focused there, but clients would continue to struggle with follow through. So they have this incredible plan that I know 100% is going to work, but they're failing to execute on it. And that's where I discovered the importance of mindset. Because if our mindset is not in the right place, you may be the best, smartest coach in the world who's writing the most fabulous protocols that would like irrefutably help this client get to their goal. But if you can't get them on board and help overcome the mindset barriers to actually follow through with the plan means nothing. So now we work a lot on behavioral change, myth busting, and our approach is education based, not just telling
Mhm.
people like, just toxic positivity or like, you have to just like say three things you love about yourself in the mirror every morning, even though some of those are helpful and work, but really just trying to help our clients like understand their mindsets and understand the fitness nutrition more, which I find really empowers people to get on board. Because if you just tell someone over and over what to do, they might have a big disconnect. There's lots of conflicting information online. Maybe you're still building rapport and trust. But if you can really help them understand specific to them why it's going to benefit them, then they believe in the plan as well. And they're much more likely to take action on it. And with that ongoing support, they're more consistent over time. And then voila, like finally, we have achieved the goals that we've been trying to achieve for potentially decades.
No, it makes a lot of sense because I can say I worked with there was a phase where I worked primarily with, you know, athletes, and it was very, less, I'd say less coaching, more like just specifics, dialing in exactly what they need to do. And they were the types that they were like, I'm going to do exactly what you say. Done. But
Yes.
then that was like 1% of people. It's like, well,
Yes.
all the people that you need to hear them explain their struggle, and then you pick up on the way they're wording it or the way they're framing it. And not that we're claiming to be psychologists overnight or anything, but like, do you hear yourself? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just notice it, whether it's like shame or these mental barriers. And so I think the mindset part is very well thought out, that you guys have that in your program. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and fixed mindsets is a big one. I'm sure that you
Yeah.
see a lot of too, just like, well, I can't do that because, or my situation is different because, or that's never worked for me because, and reflecting, if we're starting all of our sentences that way, we're kind of setting ourselves up to not be able to grow or change, as opposed to like, I like to encourage curiosity. Okay, so you can't exercise 5 days a week. Got it. How many days a week do you think you could exercise? Okay, so you can't get 8K steps. Totally on board. That's too many for you. How many steps do you think you could get in a day?
Right.
And if you just start reframing every single goal to like, what do you think is possible for you? They realize that there is potential there. It might not be like the ultimate, but again, it's just like lowering that bar and to a place where they feel like, oh, that I could actually follow through with that. Like that story you referenced earlier, if I can't hit 150 grams of protein, I'm just not going to tell my coach, I'm just going to stop tracking it. Okay, what do you think you could hit? Let's set the
Right.
goal at 80 and let's go from there.
Right. Right. Well, I want to pull up a few things just for those out there. And then if you wouldn't mind, just for everybody who's listening in through audio, for them as well, we'll have a lot of this in the show notes, but where I have your website pulled up, if you want to just share a little
Mhm.
bit about your website, where people can find you, all that fun
Yeah.
stuff.
So my Instagram is Dala Loves Dumbbells. My first name is Dala. That's been my Instagram since 2016. That was my blogging name, but it just stuck and we've gone with it ever since. So people started calling me DLD as a bit of a nickname. And then in
Oh, nice.
2019, our clients actually self-proclaimed a hashtag at the time, like hashtag DLDNation. And so the name stuck and has been the name of the company ever since. So the website is DLDNation.com. Our team Instagram is DLDNation. And that's how
No,
you
that's
can find
awesome.
us.
I was curious to where DLD came from, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of great resources on the site, blogs, and then I'm just for those who are maybe on audio too. Oh, it didn't follow my screen, but on your Instagram, there's a link tree there with a bunch of
Yes.
resources people can find. But
Yeah, I
no,
like to do a
again,
lot of freebies too. Every single week we do a freebie. So, even if you're not in a position for a coach just yet, we love to put out like free resources whenever possible.
yeah, absolutely. No, and you mentioned, I know depending on when we release this episode, I think it'll just be ending actually, but you also do some different like challenges to kind of help spark things and create some
Yes.
some excitement. What is the current challenge that's running right now?
Yeah, so right now we're in a 4-week fitness challenge. We do anywhere from 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We've kind of been known for our challenges since 2018, and we like to do them like 2 or 3 times a year, just as a fun way to like, capture people that have maybe fallen into a rut, are lacking motivation, could really use some community. And so we get everybody together, get on some exciting workouts. We do group chats, we do recipes every single week and lots of collaboration. And it's just a nice way to like kickstart your fitness or level it up. If you're feeling kind of lackluster with what you're doing currently and you need something that's a little bit more engaging, we find that the community really enjoys them.
And how do you do the community piece? I'm just curious.
We've done it a couple different ways. We've done Facebook groups, but more recently we've been doing WhatsApp group chats that people have been
Oh,
enjoying more because it's kind of like it's text messaging. You're not having to go
right.
onto a social media app to engage with the group. And people can like, they send their form videos in there for review. People are dropping each other like Amazon links for products and supplements and just like lots of everyday conversations and collaboration. People like to send like selfies from their workouts and like their step counts throughout the day and hold each other accountable. And yeah, once we switched to text messaging, people just felt a lot more like it's right there at their fingertips so they can hop in the community a lot easier.
No, that's awesome. That's something I've been hearing a lot, pop up more and more is like just different like WhatsApp tool, like using WhatsApp as a tool for connections. It's something we're exploring with our patients too. So no, that's awesome. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's really good stuff. Well, thanks so much. I know you got huge business, huge team, a lot of great things you're doing there. I strongly recommend everyone to check out your Instagram and your all your resources as well. A lot of, even if you're just kind of browsing out there, like a lot of great information. And I think you do a really nice job with some humor. I'm really jealous of the reel that you did where like the guys that I forget his name now, but with the oatmeal and like oatmeal's not good for you and the water.
Yes.
Like I was like, dang
Yes.
it, I wanted to do that. I might steal that. I just haven't
You
done.
should steal it. You should steal it.
That one's hilarious. I'll try to put that in the show notes for everybody because that one's yeah, that I laughed out loud when I saw that. I was like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. So thanks again everybody for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and share. And if you have any questions for the audience out there, definitely send them our way. We'll pass them along. Always as
Absolutely.
always. And we'll do our best to answer and or connect you so that you can kind of explore that more. So thanks again for joining us today. We appreciate having you on. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you so much.
All right.